Welcome back to the Table Rush Talk Show, where we dive deep into the world of entrepreneurship, marketing, and personal growth. I'm your host, Mischa Zvagansoff, and today's guest is Neil Twa, CEO of Voltage Holdings and co-author of Almost Automated Income with FBA. FBA stands for Fulfilled by Amazon. He's helped launch over 1,000 Amazon brands, generating tens of millions in sales, and he's here to show you how to turn e-commerce into a lifestyle-driven, investor-attracting business. Neil, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on. I'm just realizing my camera's a little goofy there, so I'll fix that for anybody who's watching the podcast today.
You know what? That's half the fun. Messy action. Let's call it messy action.
Imperfect action.
Imperfect action. All right, Neil, for people who are just hearing your name for the first time,
Sure.
What do you actually do? What kind of transformation are you creating for the clients and brands you work with?
So, I mean, in simple terms, Voltage, it was built to become an incubator of brands. Brands we have controlled and built on our own since 2012, and then brands in which we were, through relationships or partnerships, we've supported the CEO operators or aspiring entrepreneurs within those brands to kind of help them follow a process of growth to the end in mind, what we call the exit. And in the process of doing that, I actually built a portfolio company and went out and raised $100 million to go out and build an aggregator in the Amazon space. And in 2021, we just saw that the numbers weren't working, and we shut that down. In the process of doing that, we built quite a lot of relationships in the business world. People who were seeking wealth without Wall Street, people who wanted to invest, people who were looking at franchises and real estate and all other ways to invest. And we're like, hey, we might want to invest in e-commerce too. But when we pulled the plug on the development of that portfolio because the market just wasn't right and it wasn't the right time, we had all these other relationships. So we just started to train them into the business of being business builders. Out of that, we trained, operators and CEO operators to learn how to, build and grow and launch from Amazon into other platforms into what we call a holistic e-commerce business model, with the specific intent of building it to an exit. And as we went through that process, having all that relationship and capital behind us, we've actually kind of moved into a new stage of the other half of that, post-development sale, which would be the acquisition side. So as we were acquiring companies 10 to 50 million in size, we're also looking to acquire our client companies. So we have what's called first right of refusal, which is as they build with us through our processes, technology, people, training, and one-on-one support, that I look to acquire their companies when they reach a certain buy box.
Wow. That is awesome. I'm temporarily speechless, which is not usually the case.
Well, that's very cool. Yeah, it's been they say so many years for overnight success, right? I'm 18 years into my overnight success. So this wasn't just built in a short period of time or engineered on a weekend. This has been something that we have worked and built and grown for a long time.
I've got a buddy who has a company called the Tool Wrangler, and I believe DeWalt tools are what he makes. His name's Andrew. Andrew, hey, if you're watching or listening, shout out for you. But
Yeah,
Andrew's relatively successful with the Tool Wrangler, and basically, it's DeWalt so that somebody can hang their DeWalt tools on the wall and do all that kind of stuff.
That's cool. I'm a DeWalt man myself. I know there's some Makita people out here who probably hate on us, or they're or other, but everybody sort of, it's like cell phones, and you get down to that and people are like, Apple or Android, and you can get into a brand fight. Or it's the DeWalt and Makitas people of the world who get into a fight over which products, work the best.
Yeah, right, exactly. And then you hate the other person. It was like Ford or Chevy back in the day.
Right, or you can get into that, right? It's all brand driven at the end of the day, which is actually very applicable to this conversation, because what we're talking about is brand building, which has to do with the affinity or connection or emotional response to that product, or specifically the company that produced that product, because brands live forever, but products have a life cycle.
Yeah.
And you can always understand the differences between the two if you have a quick exercise. We'll do it for everybody listening on the call right now. And I will say, have you ever been a smoker? Are you a smoker?
I quit smoking back when I turned 30, so 25 years ago, something
Good for
like
you.
that.
Okay. But if I said the brand Lucky Strikes, you would probably know what I meant, right?
Absolutely.
And even though I would ask that question to people in the audience or those who don't smoke, they would know what that brand is, even if they never consumed that product,
Yeah.
right? And I would say, have you ever bought a Toyota? And some people would say, well, I never bought a Toyota, but I know what the brand is and I understand what they're about. I can't tell you necessarily which Toyota, but I can tell you about the brand. And so much about what we do is not product specific, it is brand specific. And I think, to kind of kick this call into the right frame of mind, we sell products, data intelligence, and advertising to an economic engine. And that economic engine, using today's mechanisms, AI, and the internet, sell that product to the consumer just in time to put a product or a brand segment of product in front of them that meets that expectation, that outcome, that goal, that drive or strive that they were after with that product. Even if they aren't going to consume the product, they can become aware of the product, which means they may even recommend the product to somebody or recommend they don't use the product, even if they've never used it themselves, right?
Yeah. I love that. And I'm just thinking in regard to Andrew, Tool Wrangler is such a great brand name
That's a cool
because
name.
he can, once the dual white DeWalt hang your tool on this DeWalt Tool Wrangler life cycle ends, he can just
Yeah.
insert more products
Any
into
new
the.
product or type into that. Because it really gets down again to the brands. When we build for the market, what I want people to understand is there are millions of product opportunities out there. There is saturation. It's a reality. It's an understanding, but there can be profitability in millions of products that can be innovated, that you don't have to invent, that exist and are already in demand. It's just your opportunity to be able to build a brand around those in demand products and create differentiation in the market so you can sell a version of it. That's why there's a Honda and Toyota and a Ford and a Chevy and an Android, and right. There's all these understandings we get out of a common sense understanding today, hopefully, that there is all these brand types, Coke and Pepsi, that have a different emotional connectivity. So if that's the case, then why can't I create a brand of products that are in the market that create differentiation so someone else buys my Coke or my Pepsi or my Ford or my Chevy? And the answer is you can. And, millions of people are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year or more doing exactly that.
And speed to market's easier these days. All the
Correct.
tools out there. I guess that's the same for everybody, though. Everybody has access to the same tools faster, even and more cost effectively. I
Yeah.
suppose it's who, and you don't need to answer this right now, but it's who can implement or actually uh, use the tools effectively.
We have a saying, we were joking about this a second ago, right? Imperfect action, right? And something perfect will happen along the way. So the real goal is to get into process and to fail forward through any exercise, learning, product, or whatever, till you figure out what the market wants to buy from you and from your brand. And then you need to sell them more of that. And that is the tenacious aspect of building any business channel of any kind. And just e-commerce has to do with a physical product in our world, that we create a physical product attached to that emotional outcome, but we don't marry our products, right?
I love
We
that.
marry the process and the brand, but not the product. That way I can continue to keep offering the market new, innovative versions of my products to figure out where my heroes are so that I can simply offer them more of that. If you're like an Apple fan, you buy the iWatch, you buy the iPhone, you buy the iPad, you buy the iMac, then you give it to your significant other, then you give it to your children, and pretty soon it becomes the brand of choice. I want my brands to become those brands of choice, and I want people to understand that opportunity. And it's just a conditional learning exercise to understand how to do that at the end of the day.
Yeah. I love that too. Test and try into your perfect audience or who you're trying to serve,
Yeah.
and then find that product and then deliver more of it.
But
And
what if,
then,
you mentioned tools. What if I had a tool set that literally told you what the heck to sell and all you needed to do is just pick it out of the list and go test launch it, right?
yeah,
It'd be like Jeff Bezos pulling up and being like, here, sell this product, see what happens. AI intelligence and data and information now have become so widely available that in some cases, very specific to markets or niches, you have to know where to go find it. You have to know how to understand that data, or you really won't recognize what you see, even if it was given to you. Some person would see a gold mine, another person would be like, well, I don't understand it. And so there's a connection between those two things. I have now created a data set and a tool and what we call a green light process that shows you exactly which products are the most in demand on Amazon, which is the largest platform in the United States for e-commerce sales. It takes 49% of the market. And I can tell you exactly the 103,000 needs that make up their 700 billion in sales. and also tell you that of the 70% or so of those sales are made by third-party sellers like us on the marketplace, and then tell you exactly which product it is, where it's located, and then teach you how to market it. The whole aspect of this comes down to data. While I exchange a physical product that I buy for $1 and sell for $3, that creates a physical connection to the brand. It's actually the data that I'm selling to the AI engines. And when I understand the data, the relevancy of the data, and how to apply it to marketing to a specific narrative, a person who wants to buy that product, who wants to gain weight, run faster, lose weight, mow their lawn, do something, store stuff in their shelving. And I talk to that person specifically through AI intelligence engines that are being ran all over the interwebs. We know this now, right? Then its job is to get that right person in front of that product at just the right time and tell them and help them understand that that's what they needed. That's what they intended to buy all along. And then they get them to buy it in 30 seconds or less. So at the end of the day, while I move physical products, and some of you are, caught maybe in the myth of physical products without opportunities, in actuality, what I'm doing is selling listing data to an AI engine. It's selling products to the customers.
So good.
Yeah.
In Andrew's case, Tool Wrangler, he does FBA, so fulfilled by Amazon. Yeah. The love-hate relationship with Amazon.
Oh yeah, it's a love-hate.
Yep. And then, trying to go out on the not Etsy, not Spotify, what's the Shopify, things like that.
Shopify, your own website in essence, yeah. And then a lot of people would argue that's the best place to start, but I would also argue unless you have a significant amount of marketing knowledge and you understand copywriting and you can create great images, graphics, copy, and narrative and build the demand engine required for that product, then Shopify is a tough run for a lot of people because it requires such an amazing marketing technology skill set, paid traffic skill set, a conversion skill set. There's a lot more technicalities that run a Shopify website when you have to create the demand organically or through paid traffic media. That's a very, tight skill set. I started at that a while ago, and I could tell you that, not everybody understands the nuances of data or data interpretation through media buying, and creating that demand is very difficult.
Absolutely. So I guess I was going to ask you a question. Are you and you basically answered it, but you start with Amazon FBA. Yeah. You've got all this rich, incredible data, this engine.
Yep.
Is the goal to build on Amazon, then branch out? I think I heard you say it.
Incubation. Right. So incubation and testing on a platform where there's 49% of the US market share buying products every second. There are 200 million users, and their entire goal of coming to that platform is to buy something in 30 seconds or less. They've already done their off-market analysis, their ideas, they've done their research. When they show up on Amazon, they are there to buy. It's a very different psychology of a buyer. They don't need to be convinced that Amazon will deliver the product to you. They don't need to be convinced that if I put my credit card on there, there's any security issues. They don't need to be convinced that if something happens with the product, it isn't great or it breaks in the first 5 minutes. Well, what am I going to do with this? What's my recourse? They know how to deal with Amazon to return the products. That's now a known common aspect of that platform that wasn't even barely there 12 years ago. And it's very much there now. And you probably buy there. And most of you listening to this probably bought something on Amazon and understand how that works, right?
Yeah, I'll say two things into what we've said.
Yeah.
One is that my 24-year-old son and I bond over Apple products. We literally, that's how we bond.
Down on
right?
the tech.
We're like, look at the new thing we got. And how do we plug it in? Whatever. So I love that or hate it. It depends on the day. And then I forgot what the other thing I was going to say was. It doesn't matter.
Maybe a commonality in the buying or the ability to understand how to buy and how to return and how to use the.
Oh, yeah. I literally just bought something this morning where I was like, oh, I can buy this. And I'm 100% confident that if it doesn't meet my needs 100%, I can return it.
What's going to happen.
Yeah.
And that confidence builds that, familiarity of the system, that trust factor built in. So while people don't necessarily always understand this, it's becoming more common knowledge that there are other people selling products on Amazon. So it hasn't been, and it isn't totally common knowledge yet. So what happens is when I put my brand on there to incubate the validity of the market test and then a product launch to validate how far I can take that product into the market demand, as I'm incubating it, I'm just testing the market to find out, can I leverage this infrastructure's trust to sell my product and deliver it last mile to the customer and make it a household name for them? And that's the validation of that channel. I want to get it to 6 or 7 figures because at that point, I've now captured a market share percentage on that really large platform, but it's 49% of the market. The other 51% is off Amazon. So once I've done that process, it's now my job as a business owner to, create new sales channels, go to Shopify, go to TikTok, go to Etsy, go to Wayfair, take that product, maybe even out to retail or other locations where I know I can reach a broader part of the market share. And then I'll have what's called a holistic e-commerce business, which means people can find me on multiple channels or whichever channel they're most comfortable buying from. I can open that brand up. And when I do that, I create a larger intrinsic value in the business. I create a higher valuation of the company. And within 5 years, I have a potential generational time or wealth exit opportunity to sell that business off.
I love that. I love this concept, and I love it. And you've definitely flipped my thinking to start with Amazon. I mean, that's there. The market base is there. Everything is
And
there. Test your brand, test your brand, test your brand, then go from there. Or
find, test, and adapt to a market with the psychology of buyer whose entire intent is to buy, which is part of the problem you try to solve on these other channels. We go to Shopify and there's no traffic and no one knows your product yet. So you go to Facebook or Google or advertising and you spend money trying to acquire that customer. Well, I know for a fact you'll spend 10, 20, 30, $50,000 trying to acquire your customers in a conversion metric system in which you have to get them to your store, get them to buy your store, interrupt them on those channels and get them to, be convinced to buy your product. And that is an opportunity that you can do if you're very good at that marketing side. But here's the thing, right? Most people, especially aspiring entrepreneurs or new people who want to get on the e-commerce side and said, well, how do I get this going? There's a lot to unpack in that knowledge. It's enough to just learn how to manufacture and develop a product brand line so that you can even get your first listing on Amazon or somewhere. That's a lot of effort and lift for new people. And so I'd like to take people who have had none of that experience yet and show them how to understand the language of business first, because if you don't understand the business, you don't understand the numbers, you don't understand the gross margin, gross profit, net profit numbers, you are not going to run a business successfully. And so I've got to, help them first understand that process and what it means for what you take home and how to reinvest and what a 2, 3, 4, 5 year roadmap should look like. And if done correctly, put all that effort in when no one else is willing to do it. So afterwards you can live like no one else will. And if you could follow that path and that value, what you're creating is an asset, right? That business, that time, energy, attention, and money is an asset you are building that you control. Okay. It offers opportunities for your future, for generational, for change. We have families that get involved. We got kids around the table. We got young people working with parents and, parents with kids in here building these businesses, showing them a path, an alternative path to building income, to building without, necessary standard educational tracks, to build what we call wealth without Wall Street, right? The other opportunity to invest in yourself in a business that creates the upside potential of an actual, going concern that pays for you, pays for your future, pays for your vacations, and obviously changes or shifts the way you currently do life. I grew up in a home where my dad was gone all the time, working the 12-hour shifts on third swing, and he provided for our family, but I'd see him, at the night before he'd go to bed and in the weekends. And for a long time, he worked like that. And I learned the ethics of life and business of taking care of a family through his efforts. But I never understood money or finance. I never understood risk and reward. I never understood ambition or abundance because we were always in a scarcity mindset about everything we had. If I wanted to make a little money, I started hustling. By the time I was 12, I was mowing lawns, right? To just learn to see what I was doing. But I eventually got to a position where I worked myself into the corporate life because that was a great path for me when the internet came online. I dropped out of college and was like, here, I'm going to go get in a startup. Well, I did. I ended up in a mobile startup called Sprint when they first launched. And I was like the 5,000th employee in this startup that turned into 80,000 employees by the time I left. And IBM hired me away. So I went to the next corporate job, which at that point was IBM. I got a laptop and American Express and was told to go show up on these projects and was flying all around the world with my laptop and cell phone, which was really cool, and spent many years doing that. But it was still a corporate job at the end of the day. I was still the number. And in 2007, my number got called. And I had to make a decision, jump and restart inside the business or take early retirement and walk. And I chose the harder path, which was I burned the boats, not the bridges. I burned the boats and I left and said I was never going back to that life ever again. And that was 18 years ago.
And So you're in that space. Why e-commerce? Why are
Yeah.
you, or what's the moment you're like, I'm all in on e-commerce?
I was into e-commerce from the moment the internet came online. Digital commerce was the fascinating component of all of that. I saw way beyond just emails and the usage of it. I saw it as a tool for making money. I started a little website in college called Bargain Guys, where we were like a mini little eBay at our college, just bargaining product back and forth between people locally. So I was hooked on the concept of using it to make money, build business. And I just didn't have the path yet to see that, opportunity because I didn't know how to get there. Right. I was never trained in that. I didn't understand the business. I didn't understand anything about it. I understood there was opportunity. I just didn't know how to get it. And in the academia world, they didn't know either. Like we set up we cleared out the basement in the library, and that's where we put the first computer lab. And I was a part of that. So nobody knew how to do any of this. Right. And so by the time I got into the corporate world, that's where the money was. That's where the learning was. That's where the on the job experience was. And I took the better part of, almost 12 years learning that as it grew and grew and grew until systems and people and technology and marketing and the language all caught up. So between 2007 and 2012, before I launched my first physical products brand, I was learning how to do media and marketing. I was learning how to build affiliate marketing channels and leverage paid traffic and mobile traffic and media buys and all this stuff, and actually got pretty good at it. It just became a realization that I didn't own the offer. I owned the marketing, but I didn't own the output. I didn't own the product side, digital or physical. So when I realized I had that opportunity, I started to look around, and a friend of mine said, "Hey, had you considered Amazon?" I was like, "Well, I don't know what that means." And they're like, "No, this got this thing called FBA. You got to check it out. They ship the products, you do the marketing." And I'm like, "Okay, now you're speaking my language." And as I dug deeper into it, I realized that Amazon, which was a book company, up until 2007, 8, 9, was then building up infrastructure to deliver, the mantra that Bezos had set was to sell all products to all people in 30 seconds or less. So they bought a company, a logistics freight management company, rebranded it as FBA. It's actually a separate company owned by Amazon. And with that, they bought the infrastructure necessary to get the truck rolls going on books. And so by the time 2012 rolls around, they're really trying to get people into this economic system to use their, shipments and stuff. And they opened up the platform to allow third-party sellers to come on and ship their products. And it started a little bit like eBay. We were just flipping products for profit. But that changed very quickly when they started to move every idea towards brand. And we kind of went along with that and said, yeah, brand, private label product, something we control, not just arbitraging or flipping products or wholesaling or whatever. That's just a temporary game that has no long-term value. And so we really pushed into the private label. And once we figured that out, the first product I actually discovered of watching an infomercial, I have 4 daughters, and the third one, and we had them all in 5 years. I don't highly always recommend that, although it's a fun experience. You don't want to sleep for 10 years, then I highly recommend that. And so they're all in their teens now, but the third one came relatively fast, and mom is extremely tired with 2 babies at home already, and the third one was here. So I'm up, I'm a night owl anyways. I only sleep about 4 or 5 hours a night. And she sleeps earlier, so I'm up in the night. This baby gets up and, needs a bottle, and okay, it's 4 a.m. I'm giving her a bottle. We're watching infomercials, and up pops this, infomercial for this product. And I'm like, wow, that's a really cool product. Is it for kids? I should, buy one of those. And then it just dawned on me, like, stupid. No, that's a product. You can sell it. And then it just kicked in. It's like, well, there's a demand for this. They have infomercials. So I went to Amazon, and they were doing a not great job on Amazon, and we were just learning how to do a great job on Amazon. We were just fumbling through process and learning. And so we said, hey, maybe we can make a competitor brand. There's a demand over here. They're on Amazon. They're doing great. Maybe we can capture that. We now refer to it as our As Seen on TV strategy, which is ironic because I met the creator of As Seen on TV brand later on, Kevin Harrington. But as I went back and discovered that, I was like, hey, we can make a version. We made a brand of our own, and we went on a Hail Mary pass. I put my half of the inventory on a credit card I didn't have money for, and we launched 2,000 units of that product. Well, we sold out in 8 weeks. And it suddenly just kicked into gear that this is where we need to go. There's demand. We know how to capture the demand. We created the pictures with iPhone pictures at that point. It was very imperfectly done. And we sold, 2,000 of those organically. We just captured the demand that was already coming onto Amazon. And with that demand realization, we knew that there had to be more and more products. They were already in demand. We just needed to get our marketing in front of them, right? We needed to create the differentiation in the product. A few slight tweaks and innovation to the market is all we needed to do. So with that product, we just improved 3 things about the product that we saw were problems with the original. We actually priced it $5 more per unit than the original product, and we sold more than them. In fact, we took over their space on Amazon and started selling more product than they did. We eventually sold that business, but it launched our first private label brand, and that went into second and third brands. And by 2015, we had our first seven-figure brand.
So really quick, well, God, I'm going to ask this now, but I shouldn't, but I'm going to. The product, you, you are designing the product
Yep.
per the customer need, and
Yep.
then that traffic is just coming through as people are searching for that.
They're already searching for, we know exactly how many searches per product per type, which is now known in this world today, not back then, because it was keyword driven. Today, it's all customer intent driven based on AI engines. And their engine now moved from what was used to be called the A9 engine, which was their in too much technical speak, but I did this when I was at IBM. It was a human machine language learning type of engine, more like a knowledge base. When you fed it information, it would feed you the best answer. Well, it's very different in a large language AI driven model called Cosmo now that they use on the back end of their ranking engine. And this is taking all that peta and zettabytes of data that it's been gathering for all of these years and years and years, plus taking a tool called Rufus, which everybody gets access to now from their mobile phone and stuff to help you kind of ask questions and determine. It's kind of sourcing the user knowledge of 200 million users to determine how to program their large language models and how to rank those products. And it's driven out these customer needs. And from those customer needs, it's intending to learn and understand about who you are to produce the products that you need before you even know you need them. So it is changing the way that marketing and analytics engines work, so much so that advertising is now making up most of the profit that Amazon makes. And by next year, Amazon's advertising engine will surpass all of its other income, including AWS and other systems.
When you say advertising, you mean you create a brand, you advertise a product
On
on
Amazon
Amazon.
itself, or
Yep.
on Amazon platforms like Twitch or Freevee or Prime or any other assets they put out into the World Wide Web now that they're acquiring at rapid pace. To kind of go after Google. In fact, they're going to take over Google's ad share here shortly. They are becoming a Google based on the data they've gathered from the physical products, and advertising is going to now be the most profitable revenue stream Amazon makes up next year.
No way. Even above the AWS, their web services.
Above AWS, yeah.
Holy
Advertising will surpass it, right?
Toledo.
It's a very pure profit model, literally, when you're charging CPM. So Amazon sellers have to be very smart about what they produce, how they track it, and how they measure it, because you don't want Amazon to eat your lunch on advertising, because they can do that. And they make a lot of recommendations that if you fall into it, you could easily blow dollars on things you shouldn't be spending because, well, they suggested you do it, of course.
Of
And that
course.
doesn't mean you should do it. Don't push that button that says spend more and we'll optimize it for you automatically. No, no, no. That's just literally handing them your credit card and saying, here, charge me thousands of dollars. Thank you very much.
Oh
And
my
that huge mistake, especially those who are brand new. But the whole economic engine can advertise on Amazon, which is great. And you can have an organic and an advertising on Amazon. This is very powerful. It's one of the only places online that has it at this volume and scale outside of TikTok, which is actually a demand creation platform, not a demand capture platform. These are two separate things. Okay. On TikTok, it is all about capturing that demand and creating new demand out of existing ideas from things that don't exist yet, videos, viral videos, whatever, promotions. Okay. It's creating demand, but Amazon's capturing that demand, right? It's capturing it from existing sellers and from those who are out marketing for demand creation who are falling over to Amazon and buying those products. And it's even happening like 30% of the time now from all television commercial and advertising. Even if it doesn't say it's on Amazon, it's falling over to Amazon. So that demand is tremendous, right? With our ads, and it's huge. And when you get the right marketing language and product in front of those people, and you know that it is a need, and I can tell you what the need is in my tool that is making that demand, I can tell you where to put it in Amazon's big filing system so it's properly aligned with the AI engine. And I can tell you exactly which products are making up that need so that you can go in and make your variation, your innovation of it with just a few tweaks and changes, and then test the market and see if they'll buy it from you instead.
That is awesome. Okay. Who's the perfect person listening right now that
Sure.
needs to hear your message? Yeah. Who are you really built to help? Is it my friend Tom who's doing 3D printing sunglasses, trying to, he has a fine little business outside of Amazon, but it's like, man, you need to, come over
Yeah, they
here,
could be
test out?
a variety of people. There's usually three avatars, right? There's the
Okay.
aspiring entrepreneur who's listening to this going, maybe I could do that. Maybe I could have a business. Maybe I could be successful. Maybe I don't want this engineering job anymore, or I don't want to be in the dental practice, or I don't want to be a lawyer anymore. I'm done with the medical side. Like I have, state reps and doctors and lawyers and stay-at-home moms that have done this, and I've helped 19-year-old high school dropouts. There's an aptitude of it, and usually they're going to be someone who is looking at, say, franchises, other business building, real estate, other wealth without Wall Street. They have capital and they want to put it somewhere. They want to put it to work. They want to see an opportunity be created out of that, maybe from a generational time aspect or even generational wealth. They want to deploy capital. They don't want to just leave it sitting in their bank account. They're typically looking for alternatives than just dumping into 401ks, and Bitcoin's kind of risky. So they're thinking, well, I understand physical product concepts because, well, I buy products. And they'll usually be at that level where they understand capitalization of a business is not a few $1,000s, but it may be a few $100,000. Maybe they're looking at buying a franchise or other things. So they're typically people who are more advanced in station and life. They're 40 to 60 years old. They're looking about that next 10 years. They don't want to be in that another 20 years of the current corporate gig or business they created that's kind of locked them in time wise. The freedom and capacity we have to operate these businesses now with AI systems and this infrastructure is amazing. I do it on 50 acres in the country. We homeschool our children. We build multiple, I have 9 brands that are running now. We've got 12 brands in operations. We've got another 21 behind it, plus our clients, because we can build these things and run them at complete distribution that's independent of a localized place. I can literally go to Florida for a month and hang out on the beach with my kids and never touch a product, because all of it is moving with logistics and AI systems and freight-based systems where I don't even touch the products or the containers, and I can run those brands and businesses. So, people are typically wanting to be on that inspiring side. If they're an existing business owner, typically I have to see that they're willing to change the way they're thinking about it, or the way that they're willing to listen to things maybe they don't understand. I mean, if you haven't sold 10, $50 million or more a year in e-commerce, I probably know a few things about this. And at the end, they have to be willing to be trained or coached to change their way of thinking. Now, David LeBlanc was one of these guys. He had a $30,000 a month business, and he was doing really well to the degree that he was showing revenue. However, he wasn't profitable. So he came and he's like, well, I either got to get this thing running or I got to shut it down because it's just not profitable. We had him do 100K a month with 20% net profits 4 months after. He's now does over 600,000 a month on Amazon. And he's opening up a Shopify channel because he was willing to listen, be trained on things he didn't understand. And it really got down to this economic engine that's been created. There's specific things it wants you to do. And if you're fighting with it, it won't benefit you. And you can have the greatest product in the world, but no one's ever going to see it if you don't follow what it actually wants. And we showed him what it wants. And then, of course, the market rewarded him with. So, typically we're looking at a 3 to 5 year venture. We build in year 1, we deploy all interest back into that business, all profits back in, so that year 2 growth to profitability is something in 12 to 18 months we can see. And then by years 3 through 5, we're looking at scale so that you can become what we call the 8%. 92% of businesses fail in year 4 through 5. Only 8% make it. And I want people to become the 8%. So it means they have to understand the business, the fundamentals, the system, and the economics, the turnover of inventory, the capitalization of a physical inventory business, and the marketing of that business. And then we build operators. These CEO operators become successful at their businesses. And since I don't have any employees, I partner with those that have been trained over the years to build their company, and then they partner with us on other companies. So I created a joint venture partnership arrangement by which they can work as a CEO operator in businesses that we're building or businesses that we're acquiring, and they can get a percentage of the profits and come in and help us operate those companies. So that's what I have. No employees. I have highly skilled operators who run their own businesses and then partner with us on additional businesses. And that's why I even do this at all.
It's so fun.
It is fun.
Object.
It's a blast. I absolutely love it, dude. I've done a lot of things in my life, and the most fun is building brands.
I mean, the way I hear you talk about it and your knowledge and this tool that you have and your experience, I mean, the opportunity is almost mind-boggling for you.
It's so big, dude. It's so huge. Amazon gets 5 billion impressions a month. And here's something that most don't realize. That has not changed. And actually, it grew by about 1 billion impressions a month since COVID launched. It actually spiked way up and then kind of came back down and settled in around 5 billion a month. What has changed is the amount of sellers who understand how to market correctly, understand the fundamentals of business, and understand the product opportunities. And that has actually decreased in the last year. So what's occurred, and I just put this on my Substack here yesterday about the opportunity that people are missing right now to be bullish in this market is that 31% of the traffic has increased for sellers in the marketplace due to that gap. Those who have fallen out. So Amazon averages about 1 million new sellers every year, but between 24 and 25, they lost 300,000 sellers in the market. But the demand did not change. So for those of us who are still there, we're watching the sales and stuff go up like crazy because the demand didn't change, but the amount of sellers and competition did.
Mm.
Yeah, huge opportunities to grow. And when, Warren Buffett famously said, when the market, I'm going to totally bet, I had two different sayings just crash into my brain. When the ocean goes out, you find out who's naked. And right. And so
Yeah.
what we see right now, oh, there's blood in the streets. You need to be aggressive, be greedy, right? And when there's not, don't be greedy. Well, right now is an opportunity to be greedy in the business world, not in a negative context, but in an opportunity to go into the market against the stream who's fearing changes and whatnot, and they're yelling about tariffs and things. But at the end of the day, tariffs were nothing compared to what we witnessed in 22 to 2023, because there were just, it's not even comparable how bad that situation was then compared to what it is now. What we see now is nothing, right? They're talking about potentially $8,000, $9,000 containers right now due to some demand, a supply and elasticity. Product when available, product wasn't available, shipping containers slowed down, so product's not available. Go look up supply and demand elasticity for economics, and you'll figure out what's happening. There's a rubber band being pulled back, right? And what that's going to do is force product prices to go up at the per container load. It doesn't mean they're going to go up at the consumer side, folks. It just means they're going to go up at the container side. But even then, if they go up in twice the amount to 3 times the amount we're paying right now at 4,000, they go up to 9,000 or 12,000. We were paying 25,000 a container in the second quarter of 2020. Nobody understands this because they were all focused on, the pandemic stuff and the health stuff and all that concern. But those of us who are running a business went from $4,000 containers in 2019 into 2019 to $25,000 containers in the second quarter of 2020. And that's what most people aren't seeing, is how much more dramatic that was for product supply chain, et cetera. They know the toilet paper thing, right? Everybody freaked out about the toilet paper stuff. Oh my gosh, I can't get toilet paper. But it really got down to, where is the opportunity? Because so many people do not understand what they're seeing, or are afraid, or even in business models that can't sustain this, or selling products at price points that are unsustainable. Sub $50 on Amazon, you do not want to sell. You're competing with Chinese, and you're going to be impacted by the tariffs. Those of us in the 50 to 150 are watching this right now and being extremely bullish. We're moving millions of dollars of inventory into the market this year.
I love the way you say that. That's so good. So someone's watching, listening, they're all excited about Amazon FBA, and then you say 3 to 5 year time horizon, and they go, oh.
Well, of course. Yeah, I get it. We're in a 3 to 5 month society because we need things to change in 3 to 5 months or everything's broken. And our attention spans are now 3 to 5 seconds. I believe it's somewhere around 6 seconds on average, but I believe gorillas are around 7 or 8. So we gotta do better. And everybody wants it now. I get it. When I had no money in my bank account, right? Because I have ran into problems. Believe it or not, not everything went extremely well for me. I had a very terrible divorce that helped me really understand what I'm supposed to be as a man and a husband. And I went through a bankruptcy, which really helped me understand what it meant to be fiscally responsible and be a strong businessman. And I've had my back against the wall with 3 young children and a pregnant wife when I had $569 in my bank account. So when I understand what it means to fight, just understand, these are types of models for business that don't always apply to everybody. If you can't put 50 to 100K into a business in year one, it doesn't matter what channel you put it into, you're not actually setting up one of the success metrics for a business, right? If you have a lot of time to dedicate to the business, but no money, there's a missing success metric. If you have a lot of money, but aren't willing to dedicate the time, there's a missing success metric. So you have to balance what I call the team effort, which is the time, energy, attention, and the money. That is the entire team effort of a successful business. No matter what you look at it, nothing is truly passive, but what I call almost automation can be built into so many of these segments that, you could see your time, energy, and attention come down once you invest the levels needed in there, and you can see your money return much faster if you're willing to deploy it at a rate necessary to meet the demand in the market. If you're willing to hoard it, or you don't see the value in trading $1 of fiat currency for $3, okay, they can turn into more assets in other ways, then you are not going to see the value of any business, no matter what it is. This is not an Amazon business. All right. We're creating an e-commerce brand that happens to use Amazon's sales channel to start with and then moves into an omni-channel aspect to create a holistic e-commerce brand, right? Or a holistic business. If you look at Amazon, it's a holistic business. Apple is a holistic business. You can buy Teslas online. That's a holistic business now too. So we have to start thinking about the business side of the business and not the specifics of the channel. If you just thought about the specifics of the channel, you would hate every channel because everyone has major problems to overcome, right? And that's where that time is required.
So I'm hearing you. So I heard a couple things. I love the way you frame that, and basically return on investment, return on assets. I like the way you said fiat currency. You're like, hey, if you can let go of the idea of I need to have this dollar bill, and I can, and I'm creating a different, asset,
Yeah.
and whatever
I mean,
that is.
I'm trading one asset for another. One has one valuation, one has a higher valuation.
Yeah,
One is depreciating, one is appreciating.
yeah, love
Big
that.
difference, right?
Yeah. And then what about the person that was all excited and then heard you say, well, if you don't have $100,000 to play this game, then too bad.
You can start with much less capital. You just won't start with me. Let's just frame how that works, okay? And there's a reason for that because after 12 years of this marketplace and 18 years in business, I understand some things about money and finance that I was not willing to understand before because I didn't come from it either. And when I heard people talk to me like I'm speaking to you right now, I didn't necessarily believe them. And until I actually went through that process, did I not listen back in my own mind to conversations I had in the past with people who knew more than me. And then it dawns on me, this is what they're talking about now. And I didn't get it either. So at the end of the day, you may not get it right now, but the process by which building a company is successful, okay, there's only three factors that play into the success of a company. And one of them is funding. It is an unavoidable problem, but opportunity that has to be overcome. And when you're in a scarcity mindset or thinking about hoarding or lacking or the fear, or you play the what if game of the future, what if this, what if it doesn't work, what if this doesn't happen, what if what? What you're actually saying is, I don't trust myself to go do it. I don't necessarily know that it's going to work. And until then, I don't see it working. So you can play whatever side of that you want, but at the end of the day, you have to be willing to risk in yourself. You have to be willing to risk on what you're willing to do. And then you're going to have to not be willing to give up until it becomes successful. Inevitably, business fails at every level when the person gives up. Those who become successful simply did not give up. I don't no longer say no. I say KNOW. I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out. I don't know when, I don't know if, I don't know how, but I don't know. It's going to work. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to pivot until it does. And if you can see that in an abundant format, then you realize that, you may be putting limitations on it that are unrecognized or just uneducated, no offense, to the situation because you simply don't know what you don't know. And that's where building mentorship and growth comes in, becomes very important. See, what for me, it ended up being my uncle. So my dad, who didn't understand money in our house, it was a 4-letter word. You don't say money because you're disrespecting dad, right? He provided, he gave you what you wanted. If you ask for more or wonder why you can't have it, you're simply just saying dad's not good enough. We don't have it. So I learned very quickly not to be that person. But I also didn't understand why we couldn't talk about money until much later. And then I had an uncle who became successful in business, and having conversations with him was like night and day. And I had that year until 2007, and he actually died in actually 2006, he died in an ultralight aircraft incident, and that killed him early. And I have had so many conversations with him to that point, I didn't even realize what I didn't know, or what I was learning, or what I was listening to. And ever since then, it continues to pop up in my head. He was talking about abundance. He was talking about the value of time and purpose. He was talking about the value of money as a tool and how it should be used. I just couldn't understand it. And until I got in a place where I was willing to risk everything, literally, okay, I mean, when I went bankrupt, I risked my marriage, I risked my family, I obviously risked all the capital, and I went very risky. And many of you are afraid to do that, but I will tell you, I have lived. I have lived through that, right? I'm still here. And I've got my success because I wasn't willing to give up. I didn't say no. I said, I don't know. I'm going to figure it out. And some of you think that going financially bankrupt is the worst thing that can happen to you. And I would argue from my position, abundance now, never trying would have been the worst thing ever.
It's good. All
Never
right.
trying would have been the worst.
It's good. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Rapid fire round. Favorite business book not about business?
Feel the Fear and Do It Anyways by Susan Jeffers.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah,
Top
it got me
takeaway.
through some
Oh,
tough conversations in my head.
yeah, love that. Feel the fear.
And do it anyways.
And who is it by?
Susan Jeffries.
I'm just taking it out. Susan
An older book,
Jeffries.
but I happened upon it when I was working through some mind stuff. And the simple concept is you go to the place in your head where you ask what's the worst that can happen?
Mm,
And you work that through your mind. What's the worst that can happen? Okay. Well, I can't make my mortgage, so I got to sell my house. Well, I can't sell my house because I can't get the money out of it that's necessary. Well, if I can't sell my house, I have to borrow money to get out of the house, or I got to borrow from a friend or family. But then the worst can happen is, well, I don't have any more money to pay off that money. And so you can what if yourself, and to every consequence of negative outcome, what you have to do is realize that your life and your business, if you choose to go after one, is nothing but solving a series of problems.
mm,
That's our job. That's what we do.
I love it. Most underrated habit.
Sleeping,
Oh, that's good.
sleeping, the amount of time you need for you to hit your circadian rhythm, whatever it is. I only need about 4 to 5 hours of sleep because I know that if I get to bed before 2 or 3 in the morning, as long as I'm asleep before 3 o'clock, I will hit my rhythm between 3 and 7 every morning as long as I do that. So I only need about that 4 hours. I know that now.
What's something weird that works in your business?
Something weird that works in my business: having no employees. At the
Say it
scale,
again.
having no employees at the scale of business we have. I heard this the other day. Someone said that the first $1 billion business will be a single person by next year. And I believe it. I can see exactly how it's going to happen.
That's amazing. 30 seconds. Tell me.
Well, I mean, it's AI and technology. It's systems of automation. One person can now replicate 10 people through processes by which they can utilize tools. I have one operator. I have 3 operators, a fourth coming online that run 9 companies. And 9 companies at scale. Why? Because with systems, logistics, automation, PPC management, image creation, listing creations and copywriting, and a number of tasks that used to take 4, 5, 6 other people, that one operator can now use AI systems to complete each of those tasks. So one person can replicate in a 10-man team.
It's awesome. One thing you're still working on personally.
Pride,
Mm,
always pride. You ever watch that show Nefarious?
no.
Yeah, it's a tough one, right? It's a tough one. I've only watched the trailers because I realized I can't sit down and watch the entire show. And the reason I can't is because I realize how prideful I am. And I only need to know enough about that to realize it's the one thing that I will be tempted by always and have to fight against probably for the rest of my life.
Yeah. I'm the same way. And
Pride leads
yeah,
to ill.
keeping that in check. Keeping the,
Always.
yeah. So
Always.
good. So what's the show Nefarious about? Is it I
Well, it's the guy who is a criminal who turns out to be a demon who is then challenged to converse with the lawyer who is of the world. And the thing that he really loves is how this man convinces himself that there is no God, there are no demons. And that's exactly what the demon wants him to do, is convince himself that he doesn't exist.
mm,
Because then he gives his allegiance. And one of those things he gives the pathway to allegiance is through pride. And if you go watch or listen and read C.S. Lewis' Screw Tapes letters, you will understand how close those two things correlate to each other, which is the Screw Tape letters were two demons, a uncle talking to his nephew, the demon, about what to do to corrupt a man and how they're doing it. And it's told through C.S. Lewis, which is an amazing writer. He did some really great movies about this. And what you see in Nefarious is kind of put a visual down on how that conversations kind of took place, and the key factor in that ability to be manipulated was pride.
mm,
Yep. All of those
that's,
things talk about the pride being the fall of man, right?
that's good. What's the darkest thought you've had about your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, yeah. The darkest thought I ever had happened one night in Kansas City. And it was just the precursor to my entrepreneurial journey. And it's actually after that I realized that everything had to change. So it became the catalyst, partly losing my uncle. And then in 2006, and then in 2005, I lost my first marriage due to just, a whole lot of crap. But the end result is I also lost my way. I lost my path. I lost my people. And on I-70 in Kansas City one night, pushing my high-powered supercar to 150 plus miles an hour. I thought that the barrier would end it all.
Mm.
Yeah, and thought it would make life much easier. So the thoughts, the intrusions of that got down to, I'm not worth it. Nobody loves me. Nobody will miss me if I'm not here. They were all very selfish thoughts. And as I learned that process, I realized that, those dark thoughts can lead into things like, I'm not worth it. My business will never work. People are going to be upset with me. They're going to make fun of me if I fail, or any of those intrusions that get in there and start to get your self-confidence and your self-worth down. Can lead to very dark places in life. And those thoughts were extremely dark that led me to that point where I did turn the wheel away, clearly, because here I am. And I powered the car down, but yeah, it only would have
Mm.
a few seconds of difference to change it all.
Other than what you just shared, what's something you're afraid to admit publicly?
Something I'm afraid you want me to admit it publicly. Something I'm afraid to admit publicly. Um, that's a great question. I have a lot of things that shift through my head. Something I'm afraid to admit publicly. I would say, and maybe a lot of other people would resonate with this or not. This is me. I suffer with confidence. Those intrusive thoughts. I can be confident in certain things I know now, but it doesn't mean that I don't struggle or have coping mechanisms to overcome those issues. And no one has a pure confident road. I don't think they do. But through walking or working outside or living on our acreage or talking to my wife or having moments in my Bible study and faith, I get past those things that are doubts, limiting beliefs, and self-confidence issues.
Do
And
you
they,
still
they
have
plague me.
thought? Oh yeah,
Oh,
they
yeah,
plague you. Is that what you said?
absolutely.
Yeah. Do you still ever have thoughts of walking away from it all? Like done?
Yeah, in about 5 years.
Mm.
In about 5 years between my brands and other business deals I'm doing, I plan to, shut most of it down or sell it off in about 5 years or so. And it's this something because I'm striving for a few extra goals, and then the few extra goals I actually have, they're all just, I know they're going to sound driven, but honestly, there's a lot of people that are involved in my businesses and the brands and the ownership that are, they have in it, and the people that are involved, the operators, my partner. And I see that in the next 3 to 5 years, there's a path for all of them to win. And if they can all win in that process, I win by simply being able to exit out of the things we've created and did and only get down to the things that I think are most interesting and fun to do. And none of them are really all that bad. It's just going to basically get to a place where I probably spend more time with my family. I'm only 49, but in 5 years or less, I'm now set up to a position where I don't have any debts. I have my investments. I have my opportunity. What I'm pouring back into now is those people in 3 to 5 years who can also come along for the ride.
It's good. Final question. I want to be cognizant of time.
Sure.
Uh, do you believe entrepreneurs are born or made?
I was not born an entrepreneur. I was made. I think that I had some of the key uh, traits that allowed me to understand and adapt to becoming an entrepreneur. I think that those things were not normal per se. I just they in time they showed, through trial, they showed that that's the traits that I actually have. There are parts of those things that build what I am now as a business owner. I've kind of moved past the entrepreneurial stage as a business owner and investor. An entrepreneur is still trying to figure out what they want to be when they grow up. A business person and a business investor already knows, they're just doubling and tripling and quadrupling down on it. So at this point, past the entrepreneurial stage, I realized that, yeah, you can train those traits out of people, but if they don't have those inherent traits, they're never going to win at this because they will self-sabotage themselves out of it. Yep. Not everybody can be a business owner. I have come to recognize that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a hard truth.
It is a hard truth, right? Because you want everybody to win and you see how people can get out of their own way. But, you know, um, at the end of the day, I jokingly say I can lead a horse to water, but I can't make it drink. And that has been true repeatedly over the years that I've seen people have the opportunity to succeed and overcome their challenges. And I've seen traits in them that have been, suppressed, or they don't necessarily see that in themselves. And then I witness them kind of bomb out or quit or just let life get ahead of them, and they're unable to get past those things. And it's, it gets a little disheartening, honestly, because I see what they're capable of doing and they don't. And I see that they want to go through it. Maybe they will at some point.
Yeah, maybe they'll. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, maybe they will at some point. I really hope. I honestly hope they will. But when they quit, it's really hard to build that into them. And so what I want people to do is just to focus, right? And the other thing we say out here is you can't ride two horses with one ass. So pick one and just ride it to death.
Go for
Don't
it.
give up the belief that it will become successful. Just ride it until it does.
Yeah, I think it speaks to so much too of enjoying the journey and not the destination, right?
100%. Like I don't, here's a strange thing, right? I don't believe in vacations. I think that's kind of a silly thing, honestly, because at the end of the day, all you're trying to do is escape your life. And what I did instead was, over the course of, finding my beautiful wife who has been with me for 18 years and developing our property and having my 4 daughters who we homeschool and live here and do all of our life, we've designed a life now that we don't want to escape from. We have taken and painstakingly, through trials and tribulations and monetary problems and all the stuff that came along with that opportunity, built a lifestyle by design, by which now it's not, we don't need to vacation from it. We don't have to leave it. I love where I'm at. When I shut this off, I can go outside and play in the dirt for the next hour if I want. I have that opportunity. I can go sit down with my kids and they're around, and I can hang out with my wife. I don't have to run from things anymore. That's probably the greatest thing of all, is having that opportunity. In fact, there was a study the other day, and you can go fact check me on this one. I forget exactly where it came from, but it started, I believe Harvard started it in 1938. And it was about the success and happiness of people. And it was specifically about men because they were the predominant workforce up until the, post World War II era. And the study basically showed at the end of it, no matter how much money they had, no matter how much success, no matter how much fame, no matter their celebrity status, no matter what, it all came down to, did they have a good relationship with their family? Their spouse or significant other, or their children, or just indirectly their siblings or family members within their community. Did they have a quality of relationship with those people? At the end, nothing else mattered. And what a fascinating study that was in life. And I completely get it now. In the end, it's just what I want is my family. You never see a U-Haul behind a hearse. There's a reason for that.
Neil, where can people go to dive deeper and take the next step with you?
Well, if you wonder if you could be an aspiring entrepreneur or get into any of this, you can either go check out my book on Amazon, Almost Automated Income with FBA, if you're a reader, or you can go to voltagedm.com. Presentation with myself and Kevin Harrington that's on there, who goes through a scene on TV strategy. And with that opportunity, you can go and see whether or not you fit this kind of criteria or this opportunity. If it makes sense to you, check it out, watch the presentation, look at the free training, grab the book, and see if it's a good fit.
Awesome. And then I have a link where you are giving out a free copy of your book, which I can put in the show notes. Use the code Pioneer.
Yeah. Down in the show notes, there's a voltagedm.com/free book. And then there's a code, 10 codes that your listeners right now can go grab to grab a free copy of the book and check it out. It's a strategy guide. It's actually a 15-chapter strategy guide around the business of e-commerce and the different ways we have done it. And each interviewed I've had on a podcast specific to my process around finance and business, technology, product selection, all that stuff. Each chapter touches that, and each one is a conversation I had with one of those experts that's featured in that. We talk about our case studies and resources in there, and Kevin Harrington, who was, as seen on TV guy, the original Shark Tank, who's a friend of mine, actually wrote the forward of it for me. Very smart guy. So yeah, if you're into reading and you want to learn about the strategy, then that's where you go.
Amazing. That's a wrap on this episode of the Table Rush Talk Show. Big thanks to Neil Twa for bringing the heat. If this episode sparks something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and check out voltagedm.com/free book to grab Neil's guide. Use the code Pioneer if you're one of the first 10. And until next time, stay focused, stay bold, and let's go speak on some podcasts. Neil, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, sir, for having me on.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Table Rush Talk Show. For resources to help you sell your stuff, go to belove.media/resources. That's belove.media/resources. And be sure to subscribe, comment, 5-star, and share. Thank you again for listening.